Okay, good evening and welcome to the July 16th, 2026 Open Space Conservancy Trust regular hybrid meeting. The time is now 5 o'clock. I am Recreation Specialist Raven Gillis with the chair position currently vacant following the conclusion of the previous chair's term. I'll facilitate this meeting until the trust appoints a new chair later this evening. And then I'll graciously hand that over to them. Tonight's Open Space Conservancy Trust meeting is being brought to you in person at the Mercer Island Community and Event Center and by Zoom. The Zoom video of this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this week. Welcome to all, and thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight, let's see. Oh, let me move over. Our newest Open Space Conservancy Trust board member. Trying to do that now. And that is Kip Olson. Tonight we're excited to welcome new trustee Kip Olson. Kip, would you be willing to share a bit about what interested you in volunteering to be on the Open Space Conservancy Trust? And Kip is on the road, everybody. All right, Kip, we can see you, but we can't hear you. And we were wondering if you'd like to share anything about what interested you in volunteering to be on the Open Space Conservancy Trust? That looks good. I think you're live. Can you hear us? I don't think you can hear us. Okay, Kip, we can see you, but I don't think you can hear us. We'll come back to that. I need to probably send him something so that he can. Yeah, he's okay. Well, now for roll call. Trustees, please ensure that your microphones are turned on for the roll call, and if participating remotely, please have your cameras turned on during the meeting. Kip Olson? Nope. We all can see that he's here. Unfortunately, he can't hear us either, so we'll try and troubleshoot that. Andrew Rosenthal? Here. Jerry Poor? Here. Council Member Anderl?
Here.
Marie Bender?
Here.
Carolyn Brissett? Here. Hillary Nate?
Here.
Thank you. Our first item of business is public appearances. Individuals wishing to provide public comment during appearances may do so by telephone, via Zoom, or in person at the Mercer Island Community and Event Center, provided they registered with city staff by 4 p.m. today. We have 3 individuals here to speak in person during public appearances tonight. And the first person is Sally Moore. Sally, would you like to approach the podium? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And we have 3 minutes.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time to hear my request to try and get a bench put right behind my parents' house on the south end of Mercer Island. They've lived on the island for 63 years. My dad died last July 3rd. It wasn't a good death, but we were able to get him home from not only the hospital, but then from the rehabilitative center here on Mercer Island. And we got the room set up for him, and he died less than 24 hours after being brought back home, and he died looking at his very beloved Pioneer Park. So I will tell you, I'm just going to read a letter or a little note that I sent to Jeremy and Sam Harb. This was dated back this last February. So I'll make this quick. My parents have lived in the same house on Mercer Island for 63 years. The house has gone through 3 major remodels, as they love Mercer Island. And have so many fond memories of raising 4 children while being very active in the community. My dad, Richard, loved walking all of his dogs in the park. And this is back, mind you, when the park did not have trails, it was a lot of fun, a lot of great hide and seek on a daily basis. And also all of his grandchildren, I've got my 2 daughters here, while exploring the beauty of the park. My husband and I, Todd, who's here as well, who was a son to not a son-in-law, but a son to my father. My husband and I raised our 2 daughters on Mercer Island while living 2 houses down from my parents. My dad and daughters picked blackberries every summer in the park, played hide and seek while running and playing through every inch of that park. I'm sorry, I digress. I'm gonna move past some of this. My daughters and my 6 grandchildren, I have a 7th one on the way, they love going to that park weekly. They love playing in the park. My parents, most importantly, were both very active in developing the open space trust in 1992, preserving it as a natural open space as opposed to, I'm sure you remember, as opposed to a golf course. They put a lot of time, money, energy, and effort into maintaining the beauty of Pioneer Park. I would be immensely grateful if I could commission a bench behind my parents' house, not in a kind of a more foreign area of the park, so that when my children and my grandchildren walk behind their house, they would be able to just reflect on their Baba, their great Baba, and just have the bench there as opposed to someplace where they may not walk as much, because as we know, Pioneer Park is huge and it could be anywhere. So at any rate, I greatly appreciate your time. Just lastly, when I did speak with Jeremy here back in February, he was very kind and he was very gracious in showing me the open spots available for benches, and it wasn't even close to where my parents are, which is why I'm actually here tonight, because I would like to have the bench commissioned for him, but I would like it in that one particular spot. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And Lindsay?
Thank you. And I'm Lindsay. I'm here with my parents, Jim and June Lindsay, and my sister, Sarah Lindsay. And we want to request a commemorative bench in a special location in Pioneer Park. The bench would be in honor of my mom, June Lindsay, whose work to save Pioneer Park spanned 23 years. From 1969, when she helped to lead the first battle to stop the park from becoming a golf course, to 1992, when she helped bring about the formation of the Open Space Conservancy Trust that ensured the preservation of the park. In front of you, we put a timeline of all the work that was done over the decades. My mom presented that in the end of this battle in 1990. And so some of the things on the timeline, 1964, when the park was formed, was also the same year, or bought by the city, was the same year we moved to Mercer Island. In 1968, at the request of golfers, of course, the first proposal for a golf course came for 2 sections of Pioneer Park. In response to this, my mother helped convene the committee to preserve Pioneer Park. 40 committee members stormed the city council meeting just as they were going to sign over the plans to approve the golf plans, and they got permission for an advisory ballot to put in front of the voters. Their campaign included horse parades through the park, tramp-ins by citizens, and teach-ins by elementary school teachers. The proposition won by 65%. Fast forward to 1975, the golfers came back with a petition, 2,000 signatures, the city council asking for a golf course. My mother chaired the committee's successful petition campaign countering this, presenting 4,951 signatures to the city council to again defeat the golf proposal. Through the 80s and 90s, my mother was on the Mercer Island Planning Commission and the Trails Board, helping to champion trails around the island. In 1989, remarkably, a golf course proposal gained traction once again, causing my mother and the committee to rethink a strategy that could result in permanently establishing the park as a protected area and a conservation trust. It took them 3 years to win the desired result, the 1992 establishment of this body here. And thank you. Here we are 3 decades later. Thank you for your continued preservation work. My family members walk through Pioneer Park on a regular basis, and my mother, now 90, has a favorite spot in the Northeast Quadrant where she tells us she would like a bench someday. While providing a nice memorial to my mother's preservation work, we also think a bench at this spot would provide a quiet place for reflection within an excellent view over the deep fern-filled ravine. We turned in a park bench donation form last December and hope to soon visit the requested site. Our family understands there may be additional costs to siting the bench in this area, and we're ready to support the full proposal, full project, and ongoing maintenance. Thank you for your time and consideration of this request. And there was a map in the packet.
Thank you. Holly Levin, are you here, Holly? Holly Levin? Thank you. Holly Levin is not here. Mackenzie Smith Jr.?
Hello, my name is Mackenzie Smith Jr., as you just said, and we've submitted an application to have a memorial bench for my mother and father placed in the southeast quadrant of Pioneer Park. I came much less prepared than everyone else with data and written comments, but I thought I would just add some background. My father and mother are 66-year residents of, who were 66-year residents of Mercer Island, 62 of them in the same house on the southeast quadrant of Mercer Island. Spent all that time in the community, at the local church, raised 5 kids. We all went through Mercer Island High School. And Mercer Island is our home, still is, despite where everyone else is spread out throughout the country. And Pioneer Park was really, for my dad, was his escape. He was a doctor in Bellevue that took care of kids. He was a pediatrician. And when he'd come home from the day, he would grab one of us, take the dog, and head out into the Pioneer Park and do the loop, just to get away and just to spend some time out in nature, because that's what he loved. As kids, we knew that section of the park by the back of our hand. We spent all the time back there. My sister and I actually slept overnight one night there, only once because we had slugs run through our hair. I remember that. My dad and I were walking one night. We saw a small fire. Somebody had started a fire in the back, and it had gotten into the root of a tree, so we put it out and then contacted the Parks Department and went back every night just to check. It was our place to go, our extended backyard, for lack of better terms. My father passed away. My mother passed away in 2014. My father passed away in March of this year. Excuse me, it's a little hard for me still. And he died in his home, which is right near the Pioneer Park, right near the area where we'd like to put the bench. And we as a family would like to honor his commitment to the community, commitment to Mercer Island, and his love of nature by putting a bench right near where he enters, where we used to enter from his house into Pioneer Park. There's a nice confluence of trails there. Apologize, but still a little raw for me, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes public appearances tonight. Let me try this one more time, please. Kip, can you hear us? Can you turn your mic on so we can test your mic as well?
Okay, my mic is on.
Oh, yay. Welcome, Kip. Well, we will put you on the spot and have you share with us what, a bit about what interested you in volunteering to be on the Open Space Conservancy Trust.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I just wanted to let you know I'm on a family road trip in Montana right now, so I'm talking to you from my car. Um, I have a long history in my family of preserving open space. My father was a big leader in Minnesota on preserving some land there. We have some family farm that's been in the family for 100 years that we're trying to figure out what to do with and try to conserve that for another 100 years. And so when the opportunity came to be on the board of the Open Space Conservancy Trust, it seemed like a good fit for my interests and for my life here on Mercer Island. I've been on the island we lived here since 2002 and use the park a lot and really believe in the value of preserving the open space. So I'm hoping that I can contribute in my term as a trustee.
All right. Thank you, Kip, and thanks for joining on your road trip.
No problem.
Yeah, so the first item of regular business is to approve the minutes from the April 16th, 2026 regular meeting. Trustees, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, folks. Okay, there's a motion by trustee Rosenthal and trustee Brissette. Thank you. Trustees, does anybody have any questions or comments before we vote?
No.
Great, thank you. Trustees, please turn on your microphones for a roll call vote. Kit Olson. Uh-oh. We'll come back. Andrew Rosenthal.
Approve.
Gary Poor. Approve. Councilmember Andrew.
Aye.
Marie Bender.
Aye.
Carolyn Brissette.
Aye.
Hillary Etay.
Aye.
Kit Olson.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes and the minutes are approved.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Open Space Conservancy Trust Officer Elections. Tonight, the trust is scheduled to appoint a new chair, vice chair, and secretary using the process to elect new officers as noted in section 3.1 of the bylaws. First, I will call for nominations for chair. Please be advised that nominations do not require a second. If there's only one nominee, it's appropriate to make a motion and obtain a second to instruct staff to cast a unanimous ballot for that nomination for chair. Approval is going to be by majority vote of trustees present, and we'll declare the nominee receiving the majority vote as the new chair. Upon the election of the chair, I'll repeat this process for the election of vice chair, followed by the secretary. So I'll now open the floor for nominations for the position of chair. Please raise your hand if you would like to make a nomination for chair. Trustee Brissette?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Hillary to serve another year.
Are there any others? Okay, and there being no other nominations for chair are now closed. And seeing that there is only one nomination, is there a motion for staff to conduct a unanimous roll call vote for trustee Etay to be chair?
So moved.
Who was that? Sorry.
That was Lisa.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It was moved by Councilmember Andrew and seconded by Trustee Rosenthal. I'll now conduct the roll call vote. Trustees, please turn on your microphones. Andrew Rosenthal.
Aye.
Jerry Poor.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrew.
Aye.
Marie Bender.
Aye.
Carolyn Brissette.
Aye.
Hillary Etay.
Aye.
Kip Olson.
Aye.
Thank you and congratulations, Chair Tay.
Thank you. I
Welcome
humbly
back.
accept this nomination.
Oh, good. Okay, so now we will move to open the floor for nominations for the position of vice chair. Please raise your hand if you'd like to make a nomination for vice chair.
I would like to nominate Carolyn Burset for a next consecutive term.
Thank you. Are there any others? Okay, there being no other nominations, nominations for vice chair are now closed. And seeing that there is only one nomination, is there a motion for staff to conduct a unanimous roll call vote for trustee Brissette to be vice chair?
This is Lisa. I'll move that.
Thank you, Councilmember. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. Okay, it was moved by Councilmember Anderl and seconded by Andrew Rosenthal. I will conduct a roll call vote now. Trustees, please turn on your microphones. Kip Olson,
Aye.
Andrew Rosenthal,
Aye.
Jerry Poor,
Aye.
Councilmember Anderl.
Aye.
Marie Bender,
Aye.
Carolyn Brissette,
Aye.
and Hillary Atay. Chair Atay, thank you. Congratulations, Vice Chair Brissette.
Thank you.
I presume you accept.
I do accept. I'm honored to accept.
Thank you. And now we'll open the floor for nominations for the position of secretary. Please raise your hand if you'd like to make a nomination for secretary. Councilmember Randall?
Yeah, this is Lisa. If Marie wants to do it, I would happily nominate her to do another term.
Marie, do you accept?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any others? There being no other nominations, nominations for secretary are now closed. And seeing there's only one, would staff like to make a motion for a unanimous roll call vote?
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Was that you, Vice Chair? Thank you. Okay, it was moved by Trustee Poor and seconded by Vice Chair Brissette. I'll now conduct the roll call vote. Trustees, please turn on your microphones. Kip Olson,
Aye.
Andrew Rosenthal,
Aye.
Jerry Poor,
Aye.
Councilmember Anderl.
Aye.
Marie Bender,
Aye.
Vice Chair Brissette,
Aye.
Chair Atay.
Aye.
Congratulations, Secretary Bender.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll now take a brief recess to allow the chair to assume their respective role and chair the rest of the meeting.
Yay.
I'm going to just pause the camera.
Maybe sit in the audience.
Okay. Thank you for that brief recess. We are
okay.
back. Oh.
Okay.
No, it was- Sorry, we're having technical difficulties in the room.
That's right.
No.
Just needs a little time.
Plug it in, yeah. Either one. Okay, well, that's why I printed all of you a packet.
Thank you. Oh, yay, Casey.
Okay, Casey. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
All right, we ready to roll?
Ready to roll?
Great. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the bench donation program discussion. We welcome Interim Parks Operations Manager Casey Troy and Natural Resources Manager, Program Manager Lizzie Stone.
Hello, Interim Parks Operations Manager Casey Troy. So the purpose of this agenda item is for the Open Space Conservancy Trust to update, on the current process of identifying available bench donation locations, discuss how to address requests and donate benches if they're unspecified locations, determine whether there's an interest in adding a future work plan for the staff to evaluate additional bench locations within Pioneer Park. Do we need to kind of go over this? And you guys want to discuss? Obviously, the map shows 2 locations that are identified for possible future locations, and the public comment, we saw 3. There might be even more that didn't show up that have requested in other locations. So I guess this is a discussion. We got to continue maybe even into the next meeting on whether or not we want to put those in certain locations per request. Do we want more benches? Do we need more benches? Is too many benches already? Or, some of these, I went through and put the date, the installation date on there, and on our guidelines have a 15-year plan before they're either re-upped or open for a new donation.
Chair, Councilmember Enderle has her hand up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll wait until the discussion from staff is complete before I ask questions. I don't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to get, in line. So is now an appropriate time?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I see that I have a kind of a number of questions, but I see in the legend that there's a purple triangle for existing. Am I missing? Is there a purple triangle anywhere in the park?
Oh, no, actually, you're right. I didn't notice that. It looks like they all have plaques. Yeah, all have plaques. Yeah.
So they all have plaques. All right. So refresh me, please, on how available locations are determined.
So it's a 15-year donation, and then after 15 years is up, then that person, sometimes it's hard to contact if you don't have their phone number or email, but we try to contact the person when the donation is up to see if they want to reapply that donation and keep the plaque. If not, it goes to be an open spot for a possible donation from somebody else.
Okay. Well, I did hear, at least one family offer to, it sounded like, I didn't know if they meant in perpetuity, but carry the maintenance, the installation and maintenance. I mean, what if somebody wants to do that in perpetuity? Is that just not currently available in the bylaws?
Can you pull up the guidelines, Lizzie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't actually see this very well.
So I think this discussion is just for Pioneer Park, and the trust to discuss. We have our guidelines throughout all the rest of the parks on Mercer Island. And what we do is usually install in the fall. We have to order the bench. That takes a little bit of a time, and then get the plaque, and then install the bench. We usually install in the fall. But again, there's so many benches in Pioneer Park. It's a matter of, do we want more benches in Pioneer Park? Does the trust want more benches in Pioneer Park? So that's the discussion.
Okay, so, and then I'll stop asking because I'm sure other people want to pop in here, but under B3, approved bench locations, all other placement locations shall be approved by the Parks Maintenance and Recreation Division. So is this really for the trust to decide, or is it for the Parks Maintenance and Recreation Division to decide?
Within Pioneer Park, this is the trust, overall, the trust decision to have more benches or not, and in what locations, or if not.
Okay. Well, and then, okay, I lied. I'm going to ask one more question. Does staff have a position on these requests that we heard tonight? Or do we need to bring this back for discussion once we've had a chance to kind of digest and cogitate and look at maybe even look at the locations physically?
I mean, yes, certain locations that you can't tell, topography wise, vegetation, trees adjacent or whatever. So yeah, a physical, visit to the location is definitely helpful and should be done.
It's a recommendation from staff on.
Yeah.
Sorry, am I on?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. The staff did put in a recommendation to make this a larger conversation and discuss the status of the bench donation program, so that we can talk about this more comprehensively rather than as one-off benches. And ultimately, it's up to the staff if we want to accommodate these bench requests right now and then open up this conversation for a new plan in the future, or how you would like to approach it. But yeah, just to clarify, these bench donation guidelines are City of Mercer Island, not specific to the open space board here that I have up on the screen.
So could I ask a question? Are you gonna? Yeah, I just have one question. Do we know the status of the ones that already have dates written next to them? 15 years ago was 2012, and it looks like we've got a few that are older than that.
Yes.
So do we know the status of these? And have we confirmed that, those that are currently active are still interested in maintaining that status?
Yeah, we are gonna have Jeremy go through, and we're trying to make contact and confirm. Yes, right. As of now, we do not. So
yeah, so I guess from my perspective, one of the difficulties I have in looking at new requests is we don't know what the lay of the land looks like right now, so to speak. So I guess, and if I can move on to a different topic, then I think it would be best to pause here and regroup and figure out, how many sites we've got, and what the guidelines might be that we want to establish going forward. Because I think it's unfair to do a couple of one-offs before we have a lot of the basic information to move forward with. And so that, folks who appeared tonight are treated as fairly as those that might come next week.
yes, yeah, I agree with that for sure. Need to establish the guidelines so it's not a one-off and every bench donation is treated the same.
If I may, this is Lizzie Stone, Natural Resources Program Manager. Forgot to do that before. I do want to point out that the bench locations that were brought up today by the public appearances, none of them have been identified on the map as good locations.
Yeah.
So none of those requests would be met by
changing the plaque on an existing bench.
Right. But I think that's the reason that it's important to establish what our procedure would be, and how we would choose which sites are appropriate. Because I understand that, they're not requesting any of these sites, and whether that's appropriate for us or not, I don't know. And I think we need to have some thought about, what makes a site appropriate and one not.
I'd love to better understand foundationally, if the site selections are driven by the master plan, when is that plan next up to be reviewed? And within the master plan process, what kind of drives the identification of what you talked about as likely, good locations for future benches?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly the date on the master plan for that, but as far as the guidelines go, it is outside of the open space in Pioneer Park. It's just up to the department and if it needs a bench there or not. And the pros plan, if a bench or furniture is an amenity is required, just like a trash can or whatever. So we just kind of have a certain amount of space and, around, say, the tennis courts at Aubrey Davis, there's a number of benches that have been installed there and down the pathway every so often, but they're spread out. They're purposely thought. It's not a one-off. We take care of it and look into it a little more, and if it makes sense, we offer it up. There are a lot of donated benches throughout all the parks. So, and as you can see, there's a lot going on in Pioneer Park, and it's up to the trust to, like Carolyn said, get a plan established. So, and we're here to work with it. So,
I imagine there's some consideration too, which we want benches where we want foot traffic. We don't want benches where park is not built for that kind of traffic, but that feeds into the master plan.
yes.
Chair, I see two hands up. Councilmember Androl, unless that's an old hand, I'm not sure. And then Mary Decker.
And it's not an old hand, and I'll just ask just a quick question. Because I noticed that these benches are sited on concrete pads. Does the addition of a site such as that implicate impervious surfaces guidelines that we have kind of elsewhere?
So I believe all the ones in Pioneer Park are embedded, so there's no concrete pad. That photo and the guidelines is a different location. That's actually up by the tennis courts at Aubrey Davis Park.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. That's good. I'm a North Ender, so I don't frequent Pioneer Park as much as I probably should, but yeah, that's all I needed to know.
Much more natural setting in Pioneer Park than being embedded with the natural surface.
Okay. Yeah, but I tend to agree with prior comments that, we kind of need to take a look at this holistically rather than granting one-off requests as, kind of compelling as the family stories are. There are many, many, many families on the island who, have a deep history and deep love for the park. So I think we need to kind of sort that out.
Absolutely. Thank you for your input, Lisa. Maureen, would you like to go next?
Yes. I'm going to reflect on the time that I've been on the commission, on the trust board. We approved 2 benches, and Jerry will remember this as well, which in retrospect, I have some reservations about. Both of them on along 68th in the northwest quadrant. One of them was placed at the corner in memory of a young boy who died of cancer and was attached to the park. The other one was installed at the behest of the family who planted a sequoia in the park. And my understanding, it was planted before it was a park. And our thought at the time for that one was it was in the visual site of our one piece of art in the park, and it made sense to have a bench there for people to sit and enjoy the statue. But I share Lisa's reservations. I think now we need to think more deeply about what our parameters are going to be. And I think Pioneer Park is distinctly different from other parks in the city. I think one of the criteria we should consider is, a fundamental connection to the park. And I think Mrs. Lindsay sort of meets that standard. My husband and I are in the park every day with our dogs, but I don't think in 20 years that should entitle us to a bench. Simply because there is not a need for more benches, and there's probably 1,000 families who would meet that kind of criteria. So I think we need to think about how we want to approach this so that we're not overwhelmed in the future, and we don't box ourselves into a situation where precedent causes us to make decisions we wouldn't otherwise make. And I do think we ought to be the body that establishes locations. And while I completely appreciate the desire to have a bench behind my house, and the reasons for that are very emotional and very, understandable, I don't think that's a criteria. I think we really should be thinking about traffic in the park and what people will be seeing from sitting on that bench. So, I mean, I think that's the hard work we have to do. The exact locations and how many are available is kind of secondary in my mind. I think we got to really work out what our criteria are for future considerations. And then second would be, okay, where are their locations available?
Thank you, Maureen. Jerry?
Thank you. I also was reflecting back on time about what I remember from this coming up before. And I think the staff memo said 2006 was when a plan was first made. I would also, as several of us have said, respect the plan. But given that there are only 2 spots left, I would suggest that that a new plan be built, as I think many of us are saying, and that those 2 be included going forward, assuming that they meet whatever new criteria is set. What I remember about the first plan was focus on the external perimeter with just 2 exceptions. I think you'll see that most of them are on the edges of the plan, of the site, of each quadrant. And that's what I remember about the design, the exception being 412 and 404. Just a couple more things to point out. I appreciated what Marie said about a fundamental connection to the park. But I would hate to see people tripping over themselves to say, wait, our connection is fundamental. But if we were to ask staff to go develop a first cut of a plan, the kinds of things that I think are important to siting locations, as Marie said, is consider the usage. I would also consider existing density and suggest that there might be room for more. In my mind, there would be room for more parks in the southeast. And the idea of what you're looking at, I think, is also important. And a third criteria important to me is if there's a hill nearby and someone has just walked up a steep hill, that I would think they might want a bench there. So that's my thoughts about it.
Thank you for your input. I have a few notes on that, and I agree with much of what is said, especially about precedents and what, we can't be unfair to people who are before and after whatever guideline is developed. Even though we have all these very sentimental stories to consider, I wouldn't feel right about that. But one thing I think that's missing from this conversation thus far is the issue of terrain, right? And the actual feasibility of some of the locations that people are desiring, but may not actually be all that feasible, especially when we're considering the ravine and the fact that a lot of that hillside isn't terribly stable as is. We do have a fair amount of erosion, I think, to consider if we're talking about the ravine and or Engstrom. And in terms of what the labor costs would be, and then what the long-term durability of said bench might be, especially given light with climate change and unanticipated conditions that might actually further degrade that terrain. I don't know if that necessarily makes the most sense, but I think that we need to hear from parks and we need to hear from natural resources about what you all think does and doesn't make sense in terms of what those ideal siting conditions are. So.
I noticed in the guidelines that we welcome suggestions of locations that are not part of the master plan. And I don't know if it's feasible to modify that for Pioneer Park, but I would, it would seem that if we are not actually welcoming suggestions for benches outside of the plan, that we make it clearer to people so that we're setting the right expectations, especially given what I'm hearing is, you know, the value of the master plan and leaning on the plan as a way of establishing locations, separating that out from individual requests on how to memorialize those locations.
Yeah. I think it'd be good for parks, natural resources, and some of the trustees, if not everybody, or, you know, to just take a walk through everywhere and everybody can chime in on different opinions on locations, whether it's coming up a hill and you think a bench would be good here, or the topography, or, you know, and just an area of no benches in general. Is there a good location that could come up for a donation, or do we, you know, and then come up with some kind of a map of maybe we want 5 more and that's it. And then their proposed locations, and that's where they're at.
Just another thing came to mind. I almost wonder, and as insensitive as this may seem on the surface, if we have such a high demand for benches, but we really don't feel like we want to put more of those structures in the park, is there a possibility for a term limit where, if let's say that you're at the end of that, you said it was 15 years, was it?
Yes.
If at the end of those 15 years, if there is, let's say, a long waiting list of people who would like to be able to commemorate their loved ones, if there is an opportunity for us to say, okay, well, you know, maybe someone else can now have an opportunity. I'm trying to figure out how we can kind of logistically stick to our management objectives for the park and the conservation and naturalistic experience goals that we have, while also caring for and loving our neighbors. So I think it's a tricky balance to consider, but I'm just trying to spitball and see if there are some possibilities there.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the possibility of actually rewriting the guidelines coming up in 2027. Mm-hmm. So we're going to tweak those. I'm not sure exactly how, but it's a discussion we're having right now about having a discussion about doing that. So it could change in 2027 and beyond.
Great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Do we have any other questions or comments? Jerry, did you have something else?
Just wanted to clarify, I think you suggesting that we go and look. Do you want us to send in input within 2 weeks or 3 weeks or something? And
yeah, I'd say by the end of August, or go ahead, Lizzie.
Mm-hmm. If I may, from what I'm hearing is it sounds like this deserves a more thorough and intentional conversation with a bit more background information about those existing benches that are going to expire soon, and if reaching out to those folks. It looks like there's at least one, maybe a couple that are already past their 15 years. So reaching out to those folks, doing it, figuring out when the next revision of the master plan will be, having that information, and then maybe opening up a conversation with the entire board or with the committee, if y'all would like to break it out into committee, to come up with that information. How many benches do we want in each quadrant? What are the parameters for what we want? How are we going to make the decisions of where they're going to be? And maybe then we go on a walk together, or maybe the walk comes first and y'all come armed with that information to the work planning session. But I guess do hesitate to put that into October meeting because we already have our work plan set. So we can do some amount of background research and send that out. But I want this to be something that we set aside time for in a future meeting more intentionally.
Yeah.
So I one comment, I mean, should we start with kind of a basic statement, what's the purpose? What's the goal? And given that, what are some of the guidelines that we would use to fulfill that need? My concern is that, these are very touching stories, but I think we need to do what's best for Pioneer Park and the community, with an eye toward, needs that others might have. But I think that in order to assess that, it would be helpful just to have a guiding statement about, the purpose or, what our goal is in providing these. I guess the other question I've had, are we getting a number of these requests where there's a really pressing need to address this issue?
Well, I think the other no-show was also a bench donation.
Okay.
I'm not positive.
Which leads me to another, left field question. I mean, if there are a number of these requests coming in, are there other ways that we can honor a loved one without a bench? Can we plant a tree that will be here forever that we could put a sign on? Or I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, are there other?
Yeah, there's our tree donation. Yeah.
Area where, some specific flowers are planted in that name.
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn.
Well, and the question that's a great question, what else you could do? And I mean, is there a way that, and I don't know if any of the existing benches are at the location of where these benches are requested tonight, but would there be an option for families to co-sponsor benches? To have a plaque that honored, two separate families, and their connection to the park.
Right. Chair.
I mean, I'm not asking that to be answered tonight, but is that an idea that's worthy of consideration as well? I mean, personally, if I wanted to have a plaque with my family on it, I wouldn't be offended if somebody else who loved Pioneer Park was on that plaque with me.
Yes. Good point. Thank you, Lisa. Maria, you had a question?
A couple questions. First of all, I very much like Carolyn and Lisa's suggestions, because I think finding a way to accommodate people in a way that respects the park is kind of the fundamental goal. I did have a question. I noticed that 3 of these benches are dated 2024. And Jared, maybe you can refresh my memory, but I don't remember ever knowing about those. And I assume it's because they were available and they were just handed out. I don't know. So that's just a point of information. If a bench gets used, I think the trust board needs to know about it, even if it seems non-controversial. And I had another thought, which I can't remember. I'm sorry. It took too long to get to me.
Sorry about that, Marie. If it comes back to you, we'd love to hear.
Yeah, sorry, sure.
I do know that one of the...
you know what? I'm sorry. I just remembered it. I think it's a really good idea for us to walk the parks quadrants and sort of think about where a bench would be logical. I understand the desire to have them on the perimeter, but I personally don't find a bench very disruptive of the natural feel. And what it does do is accommodate the desire we have for people to actually appreciate the forest. And sitting down and spending a few minutes is, kind of the best way. So I am personally not opposed to benches more centrally located or along one of the paths if the object is to sort of view something significant in the park. So I'm going to walk the things and I'm going to think about, well, maybe it doesn't need to be on the periphery. Is there another thought that we could throw into the mix?
Okay. Thank you. Back to your point, Marie, about some of the more recent dedications, I am familiar with one of them that is on the Ravine Overlook Trail. Used to be called Bill's Bench and is now the Catherine Bench. And I know that's the one that had, I think, a huge maple limb taken out during one of our storms. And it was rededicated under a new sponsor. And we didn't talk about that in our meeting specifically, but I did learn about it from Sam during a walkthrough that I had with Sam and Lizzie a few years ago. So that's just one of them.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Nope. Okay. With that being said, I'm going to successfully turn the page and carry on. The next item on the agenda is the annual herbicide application report. We welcome back Natural Resources Program Manager Lizzie Stone.
Hi, good evening. I am Lizzie Stone, the Natural Resources Program Manager with the City of Mercer Island, and I am speaking tonight to go over a report of our herbicide use in 2025 and to talk about our plan for surveys and for applications of herbicide in 2026. If it will let me. There we go. So as a bit of context, in May, sorry, I'm going to rearrange my screens here. Can't see very well. Okay, in May 2010, the Open Space Conservancy Trust adopted an herbicide use protocol, which prescribes the situations in which herbicide can be used on trust property. We update this periodically to reflect what we're seeing in the field and to incorporate the newest research on treatment effectiveness and environmental impact and other factors. The most recent update was approved in January of 2023. This protocol requires that staff report to the trust annually on recent use and the planned uses for herbicides in the coming year. Our conversations as a group since the herbicide use protocol update in 2023 have made clear that we are all in agreement that we want to minimize herbicide use in the park and wherever possible and allow for the most effective and safe approaches for managing problem weed populations so that we can do fewer repeat treatments and use less herbicide over time. So a little bit of context about this herbicide use protocol for the folks that are newer to the board and maybe haven't looked at it, or folks who haven't looked at it and are older, have been on the board for a while. The herbicide use protocol is set up. It has an introductory section to it, and then it breaks things down into fact sheets that are relatively easy to read and comprehend. Each fact sheet covers why the weed is a problem in the ecosystem, what non-chemical methods we have tried or have considered to use for these specific weed, what type of herbicide we will be using to control it, what should park users know to protect their own health and safety. And then it also has a section on where you can find more information about that specific plant. It then goes into describing the purpose and the scope of the protocol, defining some terms, outlining the responsibilities of staff and any of the licensed pesticide applicators that are working on trust property. And then it does summarize those approved uses for each plant. Okay. So jumping into our 2025 herbicide use. In 2025, we surveyed for 5 species of Japanese knotweed or Bohemian knotweed, shiny geranium, yellow archangel, yellow flag iris, and spotted jewelweed. All of these species have been found in the park before, and we have been really closely trying to keep an eye on those populations and make sure that they don't take over. So the good news is that we only encountered yellow archangel of these 5 species in the park. The other species seem to no longer be present, but we are going to continue monitoring for them in the future to be sure. So context about yellow archangel. This weed was first identified in the park in 2010. The initial treatment was very successful and it eradicated about 90% of the population. And then since then, we have been really battling those remaining persistent little populations. We monitor the area multiple times each year. We are checking in on where those plants are still coming up. When possible, we do manual removal. And when the populations do start to grow a bit more, rather than let them take over, we do herbicide treatment. In 2025, we have found patches of yellow archangel on the north edge of the northwest quadrant and the south edge of the southeast quadrant, as shown in this kind of bluey green color here. And we did complete treatment for that archangel in the fall, in accordance with the best management practices put out by King County. We did really emphasize trying to do a very thorough survey and a really thorough treatment with the intention of eradication ideally, or more likely just being able to do manual removal in the future. I did go reach out to all of the neighbors that had yellow archangel growing adjacent to their properties and shared a weed alert printed out by King County, and talked to them about management of the weed and what they can do to manage it if it's growing on their own property. Let's see. Yes, okay, so in addition to the yellow archangel treatment by our crew, we did have contractors working all around the park. They were doing comprehensive weed removal and also what we refer to as invasive removal maintenance. And so those are our like hard hits where we go through and remove all of the weeds in a very large area. And as part of that, sometimes these contractors will encounter certain weeds that really can't be managed effectively without the use of some form of herbicide. Specifically, last year, what we encountered was invasive trees or weedy trees. English holly, English laurel or cherry laurel, and black locust were all found. And so we had contractors go through. In some cases, those were small enough that they could be dug up by hand if they were little seedlings. In other cases, they were large enough that they needed to be injected with a very localized capsule of herbicide. And when they were an in-between size, we do have the contractors cut the stems and paint on an herbicide in just that one specific location so as to not impact any of the surrounding vegetation. That injection, when we do need to do it, is with an imazapyr chemical, and it is called a copperhead shell. It is a product that is approved in the herbicide use protocol. And then when we do a cut and paint treatment, it's with a chemical called triclopyr. We also had a few project sites where our non-native blackberry, our weedy Himalayan blackberry, was growing up through our native plants, making it really difficult to dig out that blackberry effectively without also digging up our native plant that we desire in that location. In these cases, we cut the stems of blackberry to be about 6 inches tall and then dab on that triclopyr or glyphosate herbicide onto the freshly cut stem. So on this map, you can see the tealy greener color that shows up green on mine, but looks teal on this, is where the archangel locations were. We have the solid blue where we just found those weedy trees and treated some of those. And then we have the striped areas where there were both weedy trees and some need for cut and paint blackberry treatment. So I do want to be clear, these are the areas that the contractors were working last year. This does not represent a full survey of the entire park for those weeds. That is something we are chipping away at over the 16-year duration of our levy.
Lizzie, Councilmember Anderl has her hand up.
Oh, yes. Is there a question?
Yeah. Hi. Thanks for this very good information. I kind of understand how most of these weeds or non-natives propagate, but how does the yellow archangel propagate?
Yes. So that one can propagate from seed. It's more commonly cut from vegetation or vegetative shoots and like rhizome roots spreading. So we always manage it before it goes to flower and seed, but the populations that we have that are persisting are due to those roots that are in the ground that are very fragile and difficult to track down. So usually when we find it in our parks, it is because it was found in a hanging basket that someone bought and it made its way into their yard. So it's usually transplanted rather than spread by seed or
Okay.
vegetation or roots.
Yeah, the rhizo roots are nasty. Have the people, the adjacent property owners you've contacted been receptive to the communications?
Everyone I've talked to has been receptive. I will say that there are still some yellow archangel populations growing in from private property. So folks are always very open to hearing about it and welcome the information. And we do still need to work on actually implementing the treatment or management on those private properties so that we can hopefully limit the encroachment onto the public property in the future.
And Lizzie, is it true jurisdictionally that with permission from those private landowners that you would be able to do an herbicide application there, or no, because it's private property?
I am not able to do herbicide work on private property.
That's what I thought.
There are certain regulated weeds that members of the noxious weeds, control team with King County is able to treat on private property.
Right.
I, as a city employee, am not able to do treatment on private.
Okay. Just wanted confirmation of that. I thought that was the case, but also that makes it, of course, particularly tricky with the habit of this plant.
Yes.
Which is in the mint family and so spreads the way that mint does when you make that oopsie and not putting it in a pot. So, I mean, I know that can be particularly challenging. So I really do hope that there's a way that even if it's too much staff hour for you, that maybe we could help engage in reminding people of their options, if that would be at all helpful to you as staff to just keep that communication open, because we know these populations unchecked can get rampant very quickly.
Thank you for offering that. And I think you have mentioned, offered that in some form in the past. And I was in my surveys earlier this year thinking that I might take you up on helping me out with some of that outreach, because there is, of course, instances where I go up to people's homes and they're not home. And so I just leave information on their doorstep and who knows what they do with it.
Sure.
So having some follow-up and maybe some conversations with neighbors would be a little more impactful than talking to a city staff person. I'm not sure.
Okay. I personally am willing to do it. And if anyone else wants to subcommittee that, like we can do that in teams. Great. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Moving on. So in 2026, we are again surveying for those 5 closely managed weed species that we found in the park before: knotweed, shiny geranium, yellow archangel, yellow flag iris, and spotted jewelweed. Some of these surveys have been completed already, and so far all we have found is yellow archangel. We are expecting to be treating those populations again shown in that same color on this map here. From what I've seen so far with initial surveys, the populations don't seem bigger, but they are still present. So we're keeping it at bay, but not eradicating it at this point. We do also expect to be treating invasive trees again in the areas where comprehensive weed removal will be taking place with contractors, as well as likely some very select blackberry treatment in the areas where those are growing up through native plants. I do know that this year we are working on some really steep slopes, and we have identified some areas, relatively small patches of ivy, that to manually remove the ivy will really destabilize and the slope and cause erosion. So we will be spraying those small areas of ivy and then treating that yellow archangel as I described. So what you'll see on this map here, again, tealy blue is the yellow archangel. The solid blue here is just invasive tree treatment. That is contractors that I just hired to go through and do that initial pass of tree treatment where that'll help us prepare for comprehensive removal in the future. The striped areas are where I expect we will likely find weedy trees and potentially some blackberry that is tough to dig out manually. And then that polka dot area at the very north is where we have already identified a pretty steep slope section that has a lot of ivy covering it, that we will likely need to spray some ivy. So this is a picture of yellow archangel as my closing slide, and that's it for me. I'm opening it up to any questions that you have.
Yeah, I just have one question. When I look at the 2 maps, one, side by side, the dark blue has all disappeared. So that means we've successfully removed those trees, and now we're kind of in the second tier of work, which is we have the stripey thing, because now we're going.
No,
after
that was
this.
confusing of me to use the same colors for different things on different maps. I apologize for that. I will clean it up in the future. So the legends for the two maps are different. I have in this map from 2025,
Yeah.
well, is that even true? Actually, maybe the legends are the same. Hold on, sorry.
It looks like they're the same.
Slightly different. Okay, actually, no, sorry. That's not entirely the case. So the dark blue means that we have done weedy tree treatment, or we'll be doing weedy tree treatment. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words. And then stripes is blackberry and treatment.
Yeah,
and then
but
in
now
this
the
one,
dark blue is
never mind.
missing
I'm
from
consistent.
2025 on to 2026. So I'm assuming that means because we succeeded removing the unwanted trees, and now we're focusing on the blackberry or whatever. Is that the way to interpret that?
Not necessarily,
No, okay.
because there are potentially going to still be seedlings that come up.
Sure,
so
I understand.
the solid blue being only the trees,
Yeah.
versus the stripes being the trees
Yeah.
and blackberry means that it's not that
Okay.
we have succeeded as so much as that now we're potentially adding
Okay.
blackberry into the
Oh,
mix. as well.
it was so impressive. I mean, all the dark blue disappeared.
Yes, I realize that it is unsettling to
Okay.
think about there being herbicide used throughout all of these huge areas in the map. I just want to be clear that
Yeah.
these are very select populations that
okay.
we're treating in like
Okay, thank you.
very isolated instances in these areas.
Jerry has a question?
Thank you, Lizzie. I appreciated all of the presentation and have just a question on the last bit where you talked about the steep ivy slopes, for example, the polka dot. You said removing all the ivy could cause slope destabilization. So when you spray, it kills it. And do you replant with other state slope? Could you speak to the treatment after spraying?
Sure. Yes, so the intention there is that we spray and leave those roots and dying vines there in place for that winter season. And then we will be coming through again. And if we're not ready to plant, we will install erosion control fabric over those dead weeds once they have died, or we will likely install that fabric and then plant into it as well. But the long-term plan is definitely to plant into those slopes and allow them to stabilize naturally that way. Good question.
Thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, Jerry. Do we have any other comments or feedback on the herbicide report? I can't see Kipper Marie. No? Okay, great. Well, thank you. Up to our next order of business, I'm going to change the agenda a little bit because we do have Holly Levin here to make a public appearance that she was hoping to make earlier. And we welcome her to come speak at the podium at this time. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, and my apologies for having the wrong time on my calendar. Entirely my fault.
That's okay.
I'm here to ask for the committee's consideration, and I know this is not part of the Conservancy Trust plan, but I'm asking for an additional bench placement in the northwest quadrant of Pioneer Park. And this would be as a memorial to our friends and neighbors, Danielle and Nick Cuvalier, who were murdered on December 30th. Nick and Danielle were daily walkers in Pioneer Park, and that is how most of us in the community came to know them and their dog Sunny and now Opie and Taco. You probably recognize them. As a matter of fact, there's Nick and Danielle. In speaking with so many people who are grieving over this loss, we've all agreed that it would be so wonderful to have a bench in the park where we could think about them, remember them, where they could be memorialized. I understand that there is a finite amount of benches authorized for the park. We are asking for just one more bench, an exception. And I hope that you will consider this. We will be fundraising, if approved, to pay for this, and I don't believe that it will take long. I really don't have much more to add, except that I think this would be a wonderful thing for the community, and we are hoping that you will consider this and come back and approve it for us. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Holly.
Is there any questions?
Nope, not at this time. Thank you.
Oh, man. There's some hornets in Pioneer Park.
Yes,
My dog got into them today.
'tis the season. I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, I know. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, and with that, we will steer back to our agenda. And the next item on the agenda is the Pioneer Park signage update. We welcome back Natural Resources Program Manager Lizzie Stone. Thank you, Lizzie.
There you go. Just a sec, I didn't turn on my video. Now I don't know how. Okay. Hello again. I am Lizzie Stone, the Natural Resources Program Manager with the City of Mercer Island. I just wanted to give a quick update to our signage on trust property. We've been talking about this a few times over the past few years, so this is just a status update of where what signs we have out there, and hopefully to reinvigorate the conversation about what our next steps are with our signs. So reminder, background, in July and again in October of 2023 meetings, the trust and staff discussed updating signage in the park. A committee was formed in January of 2024. And then in October of 2025, staff presented an updated signage inventory, which was last done at that point in 2016. And the trust agreed that it was worthwhile to replace some yield signs that had gone missing in Pioneer Park Southeast. So those yield signs were installed in the winter of 2026, and I've got some photos of our crew working on putting those up. We installed 8 yield signs in the park throughout Pioneer Park Southeast, and those were in the same locations that they had previously existed, but no longer were present. And so that brings us to our current inventory here, which I think I go into in a little bit more detail in these slides. This is also a part of y'all's packet, so you should hopefully have a list of them more visible there. So in the Northeast quadrant and in Engstrom, we have various signs that are found in all of the quadrants. The ones that are unique here are these wooden directional signs that I have pictured here that I think were missing from the inventory we submitted last. So just wanted to call those out specifically. We have 3 of those in Pioneer Northeast quadrant, as shown there. And then of course the entry signs and information for dog owners and things like that. In Engstrom, we just have a map sign and one sign saying to stay on trail where it crosses over private property. In the Southeast quadrant, we have the standard signs again that are notifying dog owners, having certain areas where there are no horses permitted, a map sign, etc. And then now we also have yield signs that are placed strategically in locations where people are entering into the park and might be on a bike or a horse or walking on foot. And this will help folks be able to navigate trail etiquette, I guess, between the equestrian and pedestrian and biker use.
Looks like Lisa may have a question for you, Lizzie.
Yes, Lisa. It looks like you're muted.
It did look like that. Thanks. Before I lose track of it, could you go back to the prior slide? One before or one after this.
One after this. Here we are.
Yeah. So if there's no horses permitted, why do we have a whole bunch of yield signs that tell people that they have to yield to horses?
Good question. And when I saw that on the thing, had to go out and double check because I got confused. But that specific sign is where it is to cross over Southeast 60 or 68. Mm-hmm. So that sign is located here where there's a cross. Oh no, you can't see my mouse.
No. Okay, so I understand. It's so for people who are going north.
Right. It is so that folks won't cross that crosswalk on a horse.
Perfect. And then does no harvesting mean like you can't pick edible berries or that you can't dig up plants?
Good question. And that is a little technically, it means no harvesting, so no edible berries as well. We are lax about our enforcement of when it comes to berries.
I would hope so.
We don't want folks harvesting, certainly not digging things up. We don't want folks moving wood around or harvesting mushrooms in the park, cutting flowers, that kind of stuff. We really want to discourage. Edible berries are a little bit of a gray area that I understand the urge and have succumbed to it myself. So,
Okay, thanks.
yes. Okay. Northwest quadrant, a lot of signs in the Northwest quadrant, similar to a lot of benches, it seems like. So we've got a couple of different unique signs in the Northwest quadrant. I did represent one of the map signs that we have in this quadrant in the top right here, showing that there are lots of, I can't quite see it in the picture, but there are lots of additional signs attached to these posts in addition to the map. So when we have multiple signs under one bullet or one number, that's what we're talking about. We also have these in the upper left here, we have these educational signs that are on 4 posts and are aging, and some of them are a little worse for the wear. So those, I can't remember, I think we have maybe 4 of those throughout the park. We do also have 3 of these very simple locations maps in the middle of the park, where there's just a nail put on the map where you are. And then we also have the largest kiosk on Trust property, which is at the corner, the main entry point to the Northwest quadrant. And I have a photo of the back of that here. So there's lots of information from the community and also from the city on this larger kiosk. So I do want to open up this conversation, hopefully, to some next steps of where we want to go with. Now we have an updated inventory of these signs. We had started a committee and talked about modernizing the signs using our QR code story program that the city uses for the art and other things on the island. Would we like to re-engage and reassess that committee, or do we want to table this and plan to revisit it at a future date that we could set?
Thank you for all your work and your thoughtful moving along of this process, because this has been on hold for quite some time. As a subcommittee member with Carolyn and Marie, I would be interested to hear what your thoughts are now having this full inventory of all of the signs. I personally do think it might be worthwhile to think about what makes sense in conjunction with Casey about like what has aged out and really just needs to go. And then if we do find that information to be extremely valuable to park visitors, so for example, these aging signs in the cases, I personally love because it really helps people to understand the ecology of forest health. And I think there is a way that we could still actually achieve that educational end, but maybe in a way that is more lasting. So I wonder if it would make sense for us to keep that committee, but maybe put that story process a little bit further down the road, and we could do a walk and talk about what you all think, and then hear what your input is about what needs to be kept and what needs to be tossed, and then pare down things from there. I think that would give us a more focused view on what we could potentially do with our storytelling, if you have the time for that. Carolyn?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It was really useful to have this. I sat here and I went, oh my goodness, we've got a sign like on every acre of the park. And we were talking about putting additional signs in. And, I mean, this really drives home, kind of the density of signage that's there. And I think it raises the questions that you're asking. I think we need to regroup and decide, what is appropriate to be here. I mean, for example, I find it useful when I'm down in the ravine to have, a couple of those directional signs so I can find my way back. So, I think those sorts of things are useful, but I think some of these are aged and they do need to be updated. So I think there's a need to kind of regroup and figure out where to go from here.
Looks like we have a question from trustee Bender.
Thank you. It's more of a comment. I mean, my first reaction when I saw this was, we have way too many signs. To me, the first order of business is, how do we simplify it? How do we concentrate signs at entrances? Because as a practical matter, that's where they're going to get read. We have situations where the same sign is, a couple 100 feet away from each other. That doesn't make any sense. So I think coming up with a standardized sign for the entrances at Northwest, a standardized sign for the entrances on each of the other quadrants, and just try to group as many things together as we can into a single sign. There doesn't need to be a dog sign and I don't even know why we have no smoking signs. And just try to put them together in something that's attractive. Right now we have a bunch of pasted together signs, and I know why this happened is because we've made decisions at different points of time and taken care of the problem without looking at the whole. So this is kind of an opportunity to say, let's look at the whole, let's reduce the number of signs, let's make it more attractive, and let's think about the verbiage. And I guess and I'm a lawyer, so let me just say this anyway. I think the references to a city code gives a strong impression that this is not a suggestion, it's a requirement. So the signs that include the city code, I think it's helpful to do that. And then I think, I would like for my group to get back together. And sort of think again about what we're doing in terms of what the QR codes ought to look like. I really believe in having that. It's a matter of dedicating the time to doing it and sort of focusing on what we want those QR codes to cover.
Thank you, Marie. And I know this will also, so much of this has happened after we had our joint meeting with the pros plan about our very in-depth signage discussion. So we'll have to make sure that we're sticking to those agreements as well. So, I think we'd be checking a lot of boxes. Thank you. Jerry?
Yeah. Thanks. I would echo the signage. I'll use the word cluttered as things get pasted on to others. But on the other hand, I know many of these signs came from Eagle Scout projects. So the directional signs with a nail in them were one young man's effort to say, oh, let's see how people react to this kind of signs. And if they work, maybe we could do more. Similarly, the ravine sign over in the Northeast quadrant, I think, was a Scout. And it's my understanding that those, what I call table signs, which were a couple decades ago in another Eagle Scout project. So I think they are quirky. I think when they, what I want to say about that is I agree with the ecological educational benefit, and whether that's done through QR codes in a way of refreshing them or something. So I do appreciate some of the efforts for these diverse signs that are wayfinding or educational. As we heard this presentation on the heels of the bench conversation, I wonder if funding a signage program or funding something like that's an opportunity for a memorial. May not be as peaceful and reflective, but that's another thought. So 2 thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Jerry. Do we have any other comments or questions at this time? No? Okay. With that being said, in other business, we welcome back Interim Parks Operations Manager Casey Troy to present on department and city updates.
Yes, Casey Troy, Interim Parks Operation Managers, Department Report, July 16th, 2026. First off, we're sharing some 53rd open space. Natural Resources staff rebuilt a section of rock retaining wall in the southeast 53rd that was damaged by a fallen tree in last winter's storms. And then also, urban forestry and parks operations staff continue to enhance forest health by repurposing large diameter logs from hazardous tree removals as woody debris within city forests. And also these nurse logs support native plant regeneration, improve soil health, and naturally decompose and reduce the hauling and disposal costs. Some more maintenance updates. Luther Burbank Park. Waterfront improvements, the project design, this began in 2020 and through dock repairs, reconfigurations, pathway, beach, plaza upgrades, and other infrastructure improvements. Since then, have received $5 million in state county grant funding, and there's over 20 permits involved with federal, state, and local agencies. The bidding had just closed on the 26th. June 30th, 2026. So we're hoping that it'll be awarded sometime this July, and once awarded, could take up to 15 to 18 months to complete. We also have ADA. You've probably seen this downtown. ADA sidewalk improvements happening. Some of it affecting Aubrey Davis trail sections, and some around Luther Burbank Park for the new sidewalk and street infrastructure. We also have milfoil and aquatic weed removal. This happens annually within parks, Groveland Beach, Clark Beach, Luther Burbank Beach, and this helps keep waterfront recreation access safe for users and assist with infrastructure and maintenance and environmental protection. Milfoil removal in Lake Washington is critical because the Eurasian water milfoil is an aggressive and invasive weed, and it forms a dense floating surface mats that degrade the ecosystem, chokes out native vegetation, tangles propellers, creates a stagnant areas ripe for mosquito breeding, and the control is to spread integrated weed management and rely on manual diving and mechanical removal. And every Sunday, starting in June through in November, staff helps support the farmers market. If you haven't been there, it's getting pretty busy. Some more maintenance updates. We took a donation. It's called a doggy stick library, and it is located down at the off-leash area at Luther Burbank Park. It's a new amenity to the off-leash area, and it's installed and built by Henry Keena, who dedicated to his dog Ellie, who loved fetching sticks in the park. This is a playful and personal touch to the space, and celebrated with the connection of many community members who often share the park with their pets. We have irrigation system upgrades throughout Aubrey Davis Park. This is a long-awaited upgrade to the irrigation system with Hydro Point Weather Track smart controllers to replace outdated hardware and software to improve overall water efficiency and system management. The upgraded technology will be enabled precise irrigation scheduling based on weather and site conditions, support sustainable water use, and streamline the maintenance operations. The Parks also plans to expand these smart controllers in the next biennium or two throughout the rest of the park system. We also have Fruitland Landing, Pump Station 11, that's on the northeast corner of the island. Park staff recently installed a new sign. The site also has undergone sewer infrastructure, parks improvements, and part of the broader facelift of that. While most of the work is completed, there are a few remaining checklist items still to be addressed before the project is fully finalized, whether we put in a bench or a table or finish some irrigation and do some landscaping. Urban forestry and natural resources staff have been helping with supplemental watering of newly planted trees until a watering specialist started in late June. This includes watering of over 70 plus newly planted large trees. And we're ending the hot and dry season, so it's definitely a bonus to have this watering specialist out there. They also show up every morning and water all the hanging baskets downtown, and throughout the parks, there's a few more of those hanging baskets. And Public Works has been helping to supplement that until this person started. And they also help Natural Resources out for another team member, do trail maintenance and vegetation control. And Natural Resources staff are in full swing, repairing damaged slat fencing and Engstrom open space, which helps protect the plants and prevent erosion. Natural Resources spring into summer. So Earth Month was during the last meeting, I said this in April. It was a big, huge success. They hosted over a total of 15 events, 9 volunteer events, 6 outreach and educational events with a total of 151 participants across all the events. They had very successful noxious weed workshop at the community center here on April 5th, 25th in collaboration with King County and Mercer Island residents. They learned about the highest priority noxious weeds on the island and how to manage them. Was Archangel on that list? Yes. And then May was another busy month with about 13 events scheduled. And then this June, Natural Resources team hosted 6 volunteer events, 59 participants with 115 hours. During this time, volunteers removed 2,200 square feet of blackberry, maintained the trails in Pioneer Park, and helped out in the native plant nursery at Luther Burbank. In addition to volunteer events, they also hosted 3 educational outreach events and photos of these events in the parks, Luther Burbank, Pioneer Park. And urban forestry, recently city staff certified arborists identified 5 trees at Garfield Landing for removal with the likelihood of failure due to root rot. And these trees were considered to pose a low risk of damage to neighboring properties. And since then, they have been removed, and city staff coordinated with the contractor to get those removed, and the property will be reassessed after removal for further vegetation and tree management. And Northwest Natural Resource Group consultation happened in April. Natural Resources staff met with the consulting ecological forester from NNRG to assess overstock stands in Pioneer Park. The consultant recommended selective thinning in some stands. Selective removal reduces overcrowding, allowing remaining trees to better access light, water, and nutrients. Discussed ideal tree density and various considerations for phased thinning. And the selective tree removal obviously reduces over, I already read that, sorry. So after the consultation, chainsaw training was provided for city staff from multiple divisions, utilities, parks, natural resources. Right away participated in this training at Pioneer Park Southeast, and they practiced this controlled tree felling as part of a small strategic thinning effort that also allows the remaining trees better access to light, water, and nutrients, as stated before. And the athletic fields and open space within the parks, usable like grass, picnic shelters and such. Athletic fields rentals are in full swing with dirt, synthetic, turf, grass fields being groomed, mowed, painted, and prepped for play daily. Picnic shelters and park area rentals are a hot ticket for users in all places that are not athletic fields. If you don't know, we have over 10 softball and baseball fields that integrate with countless soccer and lacrosse fields, and it keeps the parks operations busy all throughout the day at Luther Burbank, Aubrey Davis, Mercerdale, Homestead, Island Crest, South Mercer, And if it's not athletics, there's endless summer camps, picnics, music in the park, farmers market, seafair, and general casual users and staff is extremely busy maintaining all these parks and amenities, from grass to turf, the playground, sidewalks, hardscapes, and all the park's furnitures and facilities. And last is update with the agenda item for upcoming forest health assessment update. Staff will update the trust on results implementation of the 2024 forest health assessment. OSCT schedule 2027 per bylaws. The calendar meetings shall be set by the board on the last meeting of the calendar year, and the Scout project recognition. The trust will recognize Scout projects that have benefited the trust.
Gary has a question. There have been Scout projects this year?
Marie, you have a question?
Well, I had a request. I was wondering, because I would be interested in reading the consultant's report on tree thinning in Pioneer Park. It's not a subject I'm familiar with, and I'd be really interested in reading the consultant's report to us.
Let me speak to that. This was a relatively informal educational walkthrough with myself and our urban forestry program manager. There was not a formal report that came from it, but we did learn a lot, and that will be part of my forest health assessment update that I talk about in October.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
All right, great. I just want to say thank you for all of the tireless work that you and your staff do every day to make our parks as beautiful as they are. And this really is a high park season. So thank you so much for all of your work and contributions. It's greatly appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next up is quadrant reports. Trustees, please report on any observations from your assigned quadrants. Jerry, we are up first. Would you like to start?
I will. I was going to say, usually this is when we reassign.
Oh, that's right.
And we've got two new members.
We do.
Yeah, so as we go through, I think we ought to keep that in mind.
I do see that Raven has highlighted open opportunities for people. So we can talk about that as we navigate through our different quadrants.
Northwest quadrant was Rosenthal agreed last year to take it on by shares.
Okay.
Correct.
Northwest, that was you guys. Okay. Great. Thank you for that update. Back to you, Jerry.
Great. So welcome aboard to Kip Wilson. I hope you enjoy hearing our reports and you can choose which quadrant you'd like. I would add your thanks and compliments to staff on the great care and uptake or care on the Northeast quadrant. And I've noticed the paths are well blown and clean and clear. I did report one overhanging tree on the Find It, Fix It app. And I saw another tree fall that someone else had reported a couple of weeks ago. So nature's active out there and appreciate the staff is also.
Great. And just to go ahead and throw in more support for See-Click Fix for the larger community out there and for everyone here, it is hands down the most efficient way to get issues addressed in the city, period. So highly encourage folks to use that. The turnaround time is very quick. And then you get sent similar updates on issues you care about, which I personally really appreciate about See-Click Fix, which is how you knew about that, I'm sure. Okay, great. Thank you, Jerry. One thing I wanted to throw in about the Northeast is that I know our seasonal crews have been working on repairing the stairs down in the ravine. And I just am excited about that. I think it's long overdue and I'm glad that it's happening. Especially in that steep part when you're really descending initially into the ravine. And so I'm just grateful for that work and that it's happening in terms of safety, because I also know it is a really difficult area to access because of the terrain there. So that is a major improvement worth recognizing. Other than that, I agree with Jared. Things are looking pretty good. And I am constantly amazed at the ivy removal that is going on, the rate at which it is happening. It's really exciting. All right. So on to the Northwest. Carolyn, Andrew, anyone want to go first?
Actually, I, was through all of the quadrants earlier this week because I had someone from the Mercer Islands Women's Club who wanted to explore with me. So I've been through all of them. And I think what's really impressive is the heaps and heaps of ivy that are piled up and, dying. That was really impressive. My grandson and I go down the ravine trail often. And, it's been arduous because of the roots that get into the trail. And I have, myself noticed, that it's much better. I mean, we never can make it perfect, but it is so much better. I think that overall, I would say all of the quadrants are looking so much better.
Following on Carolyn's update, new to the commission and as a result, new to the Northwest Quadrant. We really took a family approach. People at all 3 height levels did walkthroughs. And the only thing to report was the degraded signage, which has been discussed already. Particularly impressed by just the walkways and how clear and easy they were for people of all different abilities, including our youngest who is just learning to walk, to be able to navigate the park. I wanted to, again, the C-Click fix has been fantastic, really recommend it. And Casey, just an aside, we are early morning users of Luther Burbank Park, and it's in fantastic shape. And there's a seasonal worker who's there, I think, starting around 6:15 in the morning. He's done a remarkable job, both building a welcoming environment and also making sure things are really wonderfully maintained at the heavy use time of the year.
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna bring up Luther Burbank. Then the signs that are down there, there's a lot of new signage there. I don't know if it's too new or, just the look of it, what kind of look of some of those bigger signs, informational plaques or whatever you want to end up having in Pioneer Park. But where they have the QR code with those and stuff. So there's a lot of newer and it lasts, it weathers better. So something to think about with the product.
Great. Thanks for mentioning that. Appreciate it. Southeast, we have Marie.
Oh, she's turning.
Marie. Okay, great.
It's been a little while since I've been in the Southeast. It's summer. It's a good time to be in the park. Like everybody else, I am immensely impressed by the mounds of ivy everywhere. It's really gratifying because I wish we could just outlaw and remove it from the face of the earth, but we're making progress and it feels really good. You know what? Can I just go back to our signage discussion? Because I'm not clear that we left the meeting with any directive for staff. It seemed to me like maybe the first order of business is to try to simplify and condense the signs, but I'm not sure we were clear about that. Do people agree with me or not?
I feel like we addressed it in as much as that staff is willing to take some walkthroughs with us and have that be a collaborative process. But I think we just need to figure out calendar wise when that is the most feasible for you all.
Okay, so Lizzie's kind of waiting for feedback from us. Although I love the idea of a walkthrough if Lizzie wants to do walkthrough.
Yeah. Lizzie and Casey, I know that you all are slammed right now in your high season, so I'm not sure how realistic that is anytime soon, but whatever it works for you, I feel like that would be a really useful exercise for us.
Yeah, or a couple of trustees could get together.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So we now are going to decide, Kip, do you want to, after hearing about all of these different quadrants and being in them before as a long-term resident, decide where you would like to work?
Yeah, I think the Southeast quadrant is probably the one I'd like to take a look at.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Kip. Do we have anyone who wants to take on the Southeast with Kip? We do usually, just for newer members, switch it up just to get different eyes on different quadrants, but some people really are dedicated to certain places. So anyone else want to do the Southeast this go around?
I'm wherever we have
Yeah,
space
I'll go
after everyone
wherever,
speaks.
Okay. Okay. Northwest, anyone particularly wanting to stay in the Northwest? Carolyn, Andrew? No? All right. Northeast, Jerry, flexible?
Flexible.
All right, so let's go ahead and make these decisions. Jerry, where do you want to be?
Southeast.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jerry. Northwest, Carolyn, do you want to stay there or go elsewhere?
I'll stay there.
Okay, great. Andrew, stay or go?
Go.
Okay, go. Where do you want to go? Well, the Northeast is your only option. You cool with that?
Very cool.
Great.
Can I have the open space as the Engstrom as well as part of that?
I think that counts, yes.
I love that.
Okay, great. Any takers for the other Northwest availability? I think that's me. So I will do the other Northwest and I will make sure to think of Tom while I am there. Okay, great. So for the record, in the Northeast, we have Andrew and Jerry's now in the Southeast.
That leaves me in the Northeast.
Marie in the,
Good, because I haven't been there in a while.
okay, great. Thank you, Marie. So in the Northeast, we have Andrew and Marie. In the Northwest, we have Carolyn and myself. And then Southeast, we have Jerry and Kip. Thank you all. What's that?
Does Lisa get assigned to one, or would she like?
Lisa does not get assigned, but Lisa, I feel like that's an opportunity if you want to take a chance to choose your own adventure. Let us know if you want to walk around with us in the quadrants or just report on anything you do see.
Yeah, I think I'll just kind of, if I get down there, honestly, I mean, I love that space and I love it for the island, but it's kind of less my space than it is maybe more for people who live closer. I've got my Ferolia Fields and the Lid Park that I frequent and some of the other wilder areas on the north end. So, but I'll try to get down there so that I can kind of appreciate some of the signage and IV issues that everybody's been talking about.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. Okay. So topics for future discussion. This is our standing item for bringing forward topics that trustees feel should be added for future discussion. Do we have any suggestions that we don't already have on our comprehensive work plan? Marie, yes.
This is not a topic suggestion, but in reading through the materials on June, Lindsay, I thought the newspaper article was fascinating and gave me insights into the history of Pioneer Park and the lakes that I certainly didn't know. So I know we have like a package for new members. I think that would be a great addition to the package for new members.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Marie. Very useful. I felt the same way. And I also know that we have one of the items that was listed on there by her daughter was the natural history of Pioneer Park, that book. And I think we do have some of those copies floating around in the Natural Resources office. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know I personally have a copy. So if there are any new members who would like to read that book, it's really excellent in terms of the natural history of the park. So I highly recommend it if you have that kind of time. All right. Do we have any other topic suggestions for future meetings? Jerry?
Not exactly on topic, but two comments. Glad to see the letterboxing out. That's exciting. The letterboxing brochure. I see that, I guess staff took it on. So that had historically been something that this board was involved in. And I'm really excited that it's out
and without even us doing anything. And if there is a subcommittee working on benches, I would be happy to volunteer. I wasn't clear if we were leaving the benches as a staff thing or not.
I personally think that's a great idea. Staff, are you open to working in collaboration with a committee on that? Or do you all feel like it makes the most sense to keep it as a whole trust project? And what do other people think?
Well, I think it'd be good if we were together, working together, so we don't have to get secondhand information, and it's better to work as a pool. I was also thinking if we do a walkthrough, we could do two birds and do the signage and the benches at the same time, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a great idea. Lizzie?
My only thought was just that my thought right now is the next steps for the bench conversation is to have that in the work plan that we present for the next year. Mm-hmm. And in that conversation, if it feels like it necessitates a committee to be formed, then we should do that at that point. Okay. But let's have the information all presented to us and talk about it as a group. And if we want to pull out a few folks to focus on it a little bit more, then I think that's a great idea.
Okay, yeah. Great. And thank you for your feedback, and Jerry for your willingness to pre-volunteer for that. Thank you so much. All right. With that being said, and no more comments, we are going to adjourn our meeting. The next open space meeting is a regular meeting on October 15th, 2026. There being no other business to come before the Open Space Conservancy Trust, the time is now 6:56 p.m. and the meeting is adjourned. Trustees, please stay seated until city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Good evening, and thank you for joining us.